So I just noticed that Wham had hopped on for today on the 13th, and this is the first game he played, and it was immediately up against DauT, and I just had to see how this one was going to play out. Now, Wham has been lingering around. He's featured in a few videos here on the streams and also on the YouTube channel, but he's really starting to climb up on those rankings, right? Like, I think Wham at the time of recording 24th on the ELO leaderboards at 1,776 ELO. Up against DauT, who DauT kind of floating a little bit lower, 1717 ELO, putting him in 46th place. Now with 313 games, he's definitely starting to grind it out. And as we see, he's playing a lot of the less popular civs. We've noticed he's actually been spamming quite a bit of the Abbasids. The Abbasids probably being in the bottom 3, easily I'd say, of picked civs right now, against what is easily still in the top 3 picked civs, which is, of course, the Mongols. The Mongols are going through a wonky transition at the moment, of course, off the back of the spring-old nerfs. I do feel like a lot of these players still haven't figured out what is the new strategy, right? They're kind of looking for a gimmicky go-to, I think, is part of the problem. Because when you think about the meta we just came out of, everyone just builds springles, right? And the only reason we started to see that dissipate and people just go hard into horse archers wasn't even necessarily because, like, horse archers could beat springles. It was just a case of partially people prepping for the upcoming nerf, and partially just, yes, horse archers being a cost-effective raiding source, right? One of the few still effective raiding sources. And that's why I'm kind of interested to see if Mongols are going to go full circle on themselves, right? Just dial it back to where you began, into your roots of the Magadai. Because the Magadai is an option we've seen some of these Mongol players engage with when they get into a later phase in the game, which is what makes it so peculiar, right? Because if you think about it, Magadai, the reason people thought they were broken when the game first came out is because you could engage with it from the feudal age. It's actually a very big power spike, right? Nobody else had a comparative unit at that stage. Even against something like the French, it was quite effective because you could chase down the knights, kite them perfectly, and fire on the go in that small radius. And of course, that eventually fell out of favor, mainly due to the fact that a lot of the meta has shifted towards fast castles, right? So a lot of players now play very stacked, tight economies, and they don't actually have these exposed eco pockets that you can actually exploit with the mobility of the Magadai. Because they have such a short range, you don't want to get in range of the TCs because Magadai, incredibly squishy unit and incredibly pricey for that health pool, right? 120 food and 40 gold each. So instead, what we start to see is a lot of these Mongol players are engaging with Magadai in the Castle Age and later as a mobile strike force off the back of buffing them up to their vet and elite status and also getting their hands on the Sire bows, which adds 1 damage to the damage of each of the Magadai as well as to that of the Khan. And of course, this could be quite an effective force, especially in the later phases when you're not just relying on the Deer Stone for the Yam Speed buff, you could actually get it through a network of outposts. And I think that was where we were kind of moving towards as people were shifting out the spirals. What we were at least identifying as the correct move as the game went on as the Mongol player was similar to England. It was actually to take control of the map through outposts. So I'm curious to see how that's going to play out in this game where potentially you might get the room to network the map very quickly, right? You are up against an Abbasid player, and DauT has already proven that he likes to play a very defensive style of Abbasids. And usually most Abbasid players do, right? They aim for that 2, maybe 3 TC. They try and boom up. I would expect 2, definitely capped at 3 TCs here in Altai, just because the terrain doesn't really support for the infrastructure. And we've seen how crazy with power some people go when they build too many of them, a.k.a. The France on France replay we had, where I believe it was Magic, went up to 5 TCs and just got stomped against 1. So you do have to balance that presence, because the fact is, Altai isn't a big map in terms of distance between players. You can actually see this very easily, how quickly you can reach into an opponent's base. Compared to something like Dry Arabia, Lipany, these type of maps, Hill and Dale, they all take a lot longer to reach your opponent, right? And also, they don't necessarily have this ridiculous strong point of the high grounds in the center, which we can see this high ground close to Wham's base, and on the other side, DauT, you can see how towards this gold vein, he plays into this high ground where he stripped division. And these can be critical factors, especially when you consider we're shifting into a Mangonel meta in terms of the siege weapons, which is where you can actually obliterate people's lines without them being able to see you, thus being unable to react. So looking at the opens in this one, though, I do like that Wham has this TC position so nicely near the gold vein, near the wood line, and the deer close by, right? So you can shift the Gers later, keep that cost-effective value as you build more Gers, and overall that should save him a little bit of resource, because remember, one of the big limitations in the early game for the Mongols they have to balance is that while they can move their drop-off building for resources, it's 100 wood to build each one. So they really have to be budgeted in their approach to the opening. But we already see both players actually hitting a very similar timing on the feudal, and that does mean that I feel comfortable for DauT in this opener. He wasn't slowed down at all. We didn't see any early aggression out of Wham. It looks like Wham is playing for a later timing. Partially probably due to the fact of how far his Uvu is, so he can go for an immediate and powerful barracks rush. But also I think it's just a case of he wants to try and reach that castle age time we talked about, right? Even though you nerf Springles for Mongols, castle age is still a very big deal, courtesy mainly of the step readout. And it looks like he is going to the stables, so this might suggest that we're going to see professional scouts, which is halfway researched already. The curious part is whether the Abbasid player is going to do the same thing, because I don't think he is. No, you see it, archery range and barracks. So this is one of the things that I think is making the Abbasids quite weak or apparent in terms of weakness, right? Look like they're weak, is that they don't go for professional scouts. They don't have a way to get value out of stables. Meanwhile, the Mongols do, right? Something like, I feel like I'm just, honest to God, lecturing it over and over again, because it's genuinely the biggest highlight of the current meta, is outside of what you talk about with like Russian Castle Ages, or, you know, the composition you're looking at in Castle and Imperial Age. The meta, the defining part of the meta is how you get there, which is truly professional scouts. And that is what is putting some of these civs on a whole other tier compared to ones like the Abbasids and England, right? These civs that can't really budget in an early stable, and even if they could, they can't get scouts out quick enough compared to the Mongols, the Rus, and... oh god, I've just completely blanked. There's a third one we always talk about. China. Yes, China. How could I forget China, right? In fairness, a lot of the high-level players seem to have kind of moved beyond it for the moment. Maybe feeling like they figured it out. They want to get some more weapons in their arsenal. But yeah, those three civs are very hard to combat early on, courtesy of the increased production rates off of a single stable, right? The efficiency, China, basically turning one stable into three, courtesy of an Imperial official. And then you've got the Mongols that are able to be cost-effective on their food savings, as well as, obviously, doubling up unit production, courtesy of the Uvu. And then, of course, you have the Rus, who build hunting cabins, so right within the first minute of the game, quicker than practically any other civ, they get a building that can actually push out these scouts compared to other civs. And it's beneficial to them due to the gold they get from hunting. So that's why these civs rather are on a whole different tier compared to the Abbasids, England, Delhi, anyone who doesn't want to build stable early on. And that means that DauT wants to be more present, right? Because he's up against an opponent that can probably outscale him, courtesy of getting that extra food income off the deer at all times. In conjunction with the fact that, you know, if you let Mongols get to Castle Age for free, they're going to actually just pound you pretty hard, courtesy of the increased gold income with the step readout giving 50% additional drop-off. Which is why we see this move out of DauT. This is pretty cool. We haven't seen a Ram Rush in a very long time. Especially out of an Abbasid player. A lot of these Abbasid players tend to just sit back. They tend to just boom up, right? 2 TCs, 3 TCs, 4 TCs. I'll see you in Imperial Age when I've got 1,000,001 income and I can just outscale you. But that's not what he's looking for this time. And I like this idea, right? The Mongols, unlike to be defending themselves that well, but DauT, he's not going to have an easy time here. Look at the infrastructure. So Wham moves back the stable as he sees that DauT's raiding him, and he preps for a siege, right? He's got the stable down in a safe location, and he builds into an archery range as well. Now, he could try for Magadai. I doubt that's what we're going to see here, though. It should just be standardized archers coming out, but he needs to sort his wood. As you can see, he's suffering because he just built this archery range, so he's stunted on that side of things. A new Uvu out, so he's going to move across. Really important that he does this as well. He could keep it here and safely build up an army, but... oh, DauT! Is he going to block this? I don't think he's paying attention. So Wham... oh no, the sheep. The sheep was in the way. The sheep is still in the way. Oh, this is so frustrating right now if you're Wham. I mean, the good news at least is he can afford a tech up, but really he needs to get a military force. Yeah, he understands what's coming. It's going to be a double ram. And if DauT keeps blocking this out, this is going to be a disaster for Wham. And Wham! Oh my god. No! No, the resources! Okay, I'm kidding. He's building on the backside. I thought it bugged out. I was like, this makes no sense. I didn't see him rebuild at the back. But still, the fact that he has no resources is still a big deal here, right? The Rams are pushing in. It's 2 Rams, a decent sizable force, and you never got to place your archery range, so you're not protected against this. Oh, my heart sunk when I saw the numbers go down, and I didn't originally spot the step readout. I thought we'd encountered a bug. Thank God we haven't. If that type of bug existed a month after release, I mean, it'd make you a little bit depressed, wouldn't it? And now Villagers coming out. You're going to have to sacrifice so many to get through these battering rams, though. And we just don't see this right now, right? Ever since the battering rams got nerfed from 900 to 700 health, got the values changed around, it doesn't seem as valuable of a engagement anymore, right? But we're seeing it here, slowly siege through the TC, and just, even if he doesn't kill the TC in the end, it's the amount of villages he's going to actually have to lose to get rid of these rams. He gets rid of one so far. And remember, the TC can prioritize something other than the ram in this situation, which is why I probably would have preferred him attacking the stables or going for the step readout, but it's still worth it for the villager value, right? If we look at it, Wham, currently at 25, now DauT up at 35. And that number is still descending into despair for Wham, as look what's being spotted around the back. So he chases on. Villagers still trying to come out. He does waypoint them on the right side, so Wham, 2 bursts should get through this, but how many villagers will it cost you is the question. Looks like he actually saves all of them. And does lose the Khan, but he has his archery range down, right? The problem he has now is Wham doesn't really have the surplus resources to afford an army at this stage, but he has burned most of DauT's. However, DauT didn't really care to reinforce this army constantly, right? Like, we've seen the spears spamming out, but not the archers. And now DauT should be in a situation where he looks to save up, considering his opponent did manage to hit the castle in the end. And still more villagers being struck at. Remember, he's already fully garrisoned, right? Up to 20, so these surplus villagers are just being sacrificed. There's nothing you can do to save them. There's another one will be sniped out. And DauT, now up to 37, 24 for Wham. Yes, he hits his castle age timing. He gets a quick step readout. Well, I say quick, it was definitely slowed down, but now with a stunted economy, what is usually a big buffer at this stage, right, gives you a giant number of more effective units in terms of your villager count, isn't going to be there, right? It's not like you're on even Stevens footings with the opponent, and then you say, oh, because I've got, say, 21 people in this, it's like I've actually got an extra 10 workers. It's not going to feel like that, because you are 10 workers behind. And now moving out the Evo again, so just burning that down. Frustrating detail as well, right? Like, look at Wham's stone. He's got 1,000 surplus stone, but no way to spend it. Because the Uvas just keep getting burnt. And even though he's rebuilding them, keep in mind that every time he loses one, he has to then spend another 150 to rebuild, right? This is not a missing detail from importance in terms of his economy, right? This is actually hurting him quite a lot because we see how stunted he was feeling on the wood before. And if he wants to build an archer army, then he's going to burn through his wood quickly. Now they're back again. More of these battering rams. Speaking of burning through your wood, DauT's doing that. And just keeping the pressure on. Prepping for a military wing. So in DauT's eyes, he wants this game to end in the castle age. Otherwise, you probably go for culture wing. A lot of players, if they don't want to get ultra aggressive, they just like the idea of the reduced cost of all the technology. But in this game, with the amount of pressure he's applying, it just makes sense to get military. Tough situation for Wham now. Limit on the gold. He starts to get a few lancers out. But remember, these lancers aren't as effective as they once were against spearmen. Right? So these spearmen will be able to hold back 2 or 3 lancers. And that's going to be the limitation for Wham. Not only is his food looking bad right now, but he has a finite amount of gold because he can't access his step readout. And what does Wham do? Goes on the offensive. Understands the difference in terms of economy. He hasn't actually scouted out his opponent in a while, right? So for all he knows, DauT could have went double TC. But he's going to assume it's still 1 TC off the back of the aggression that's been shown by the Abbasid player. And he's going to look to try and take out a few of those villages as best he can. And because DauT has been on the offensive, he never placed any defenses, right? So this is going to be an exposed economy. These lancers, they can strike through villages reasonably quick, right? 3 strikes is all it takes. That's 1 already down. We'll retreat the rest away in time. Still a few lingering out here, but there are spearmen now coming out. And there's the tech up. So Wham missing the opportunity to really harass his opponent and give him a little bit of payback here. And with only 2 lancers, he's probably going to have to get back to his base and address the issue here. And it looks like he has. Most of the spearmen now dead, courtesy of the archers. Remember the archers with the deer stone buff from the Yam. They're going to be able to chase down and snipe out these hardened spearmen. And this should be where Wham can recover. You see, his actual resources are pretty good. His income looks solid. He has so much food right now, but he's going to run out is the one concern. Because keep in mind that he's been working off a sheep here, right? He got the deer here, now it's just sheep. Deer's gone on both sides. Courtesy of, just not actually being able to get enough of them. I think he managed to snatch his own, but his opponent, like over this side, still hasn't taken his own deer or had them taken away, right? It's like DauT now doing it in the base. There is a few here, actually. I said that. It looks like Wham did come across here for the deer already. Where is the scout army, actually? That's what I'm confused about. I haven't seen the scouts in a while. But he definitely took the professional scouts, right? Which is why I'm kind of racking my brain. They must have engaged in the base. That's why... yeah, there it is. That's what was confusing me. So there's a bunch of carcasses on the ground here. He'll need to make a scout or 2 to pick them up and bring them back. But yeah, Wham still, considering that, he still has what? We're going to say about, if he goes and collects these ones as well, He's got maybe close to 2,500 food that he can get out of deer. After that, he's going to need to transition to pastures. And that's where these wood lines can become quite wonky on Altai, right? They're a limiting factor. Archers moving in, though. Vet Archers up against the Veteran Spearmen. Not a good trade for DauT, but he has started to transition to the Man-at-Arms. The problem is the Man-at-Arms are so slow here. Just look at that speed. Veteran Archer's just zooming about right now. And he moved the Deer Stone up. Important detail here, right? When we see players do this, it's because they feel like they can end the game off of this foothold. Because if you ever have to retreat the Deer Stone after losing a big battle, you're probably losing the Deer Stone. So, a little bit gambly, but Wham understanding that he has superior firepower and the superior high ground right now, right to push it. Once again, just forcing DauT away from that gold line. That gold line that's going to be very important, remember, because he's trying to switch over to Man-at-Arms. And he's food capped right now. This is a concerning factor. He's in the middle of a transition. He can't afford to lose villages. He needs to switch over to farms, and it means he needs to keep his wood surplus up. And you can see that this wood line is draining quickly, which means he'll have to react and move across to this wood line next, right? And that's risky, which is why we see this pocket expansion instead. Berry bushes, of course, remember, a very efficient food source for both Delhi and Abbasid players, as you get that increased gather rate, as well as upgrading these berry bushes to 500 capacity instead of the normal 250. So, in terms of surplus resources available, there's plenty that he can gather. He needs to get it gathered up, though. He needs to actually be able to maintain the push out of this army. And now he's pushing out with the Maga now. So this should force the Deer Stone back. Even if you don't snipe the Deer Stone, it's just a big deal to get it away from your base. Remember, that buff lasts a decent margin of time, 15 seconds, I believe it is. And the reason that's going to be a big deal, sorry, 20 seconds, is that because it's on the offensive, this Archer army is always going to be able to kite you, right? It's different when it's back in base. Usually we see Mongol players hold it back in their base, and essentially all it does is focuses the attention on reinforcing the fight, right? It gives you a quick way of getting your troops across to the battle, but it doesn't allow you to just kite your opponents out in the battle. But now he'll look to kite away. Of course, being able to move very fast with that Deer Stone at 1.12 will escape the slow, sluggish speed on these Man-at-Arms. And now you need some sort of switch up of your Wham. You need something additional. It might be more Lancers, but keep in mind your opponent has shown a tendency to build into spears as well as Man-at-Arms right now. And it looks like instead he's going to start building heavy into the range, understanding that still his opponent hasn't addressed that, right? The only range he has is the Maganel, and that's it. And oh, gives the tip off. So he saw the crossbowman sneaking out, which means that DauT knows what's coming next, right? Really important not to reveal your hand too soon like this. Wham, a little bit of a mistake. Now his opponent can actually react and start to pivot into a unit that counters it, which would be the Archers, right? Archers up against the crossbowman, very effective solution. Still moving in the Maganel. If he ever reaches this line, splashes onto these villages, it's going to just decimate the economy of Wham. By the way, Wham has really closed the gap now, right? 43 to the 35. DauT did occasionally lose a villager or two, but I think it was more that he was food capped when he was trying to build up his army again. And this army holding for the moment. Maganel trying for the shots, but the wrap around the back from the Lancers will ensure that this Maganel will not get the bang for buck he was looking for. They will at least manage to snipe out the Khan. It's a nice little buffer. And they do get rid of most of the forces here, right? The Man-at-Arms and the Spearman composition, it's just kind of confusing Wham as he tries to address it on both fronts. He had to hard commit into the Maganel, which exposed his Archer line. Now you can see that they're suffering from it. DauT once again on the offensive. Wham, going to have to react to this. Backs off the gold line, not able to actually stick on top of it right now. Fully garrisons, but that means there's surplus villages again. And he's going to lose a few here. Remember, these Man-at-Arms incredibly tanky with a 5 range resistance, 155 health, means that they can dive past the TCs and shrug it off. You can just kind of see that. It's pitiful. 20 villages garrisoned in. Doesn't feel like it for the Man-at-Arms. The crossbowmen are starting to make the difference here. Wham has 4 of them right now. And that's enough to just deal with this slow trickling of Man-at-Arms. But keep in mind the production damage, right? It's not about necessarily killing the villagers or beating your opponent's army. It's the fact that he has to keep garrisoning, which means he's got 20 villages that are effectively non-existent, right? That's the way you have to think about it. And if you do that for half a minute, a minute's time, it gives you the edge. The edge which you already have, right? But it looks like it's switching on DauT. Wham is now ahead on the eco front. There must have been some raids that DauT didn't notice here out of a few Lancers. That would explain why they were so late to come back around and wrap on the Maganel earlier. They were raiding out, yeah, they're raiding out in the countryside here. And look, DauT didn't actually give the appropriate protection on these pockets, right? One outpost, one measly outpost when you have 10, 15 villages on each of these spots. That will not do, my friend. Yeah, just continue to lose villages. DauT just getting juggled right now by Wham. And DauT can't match this raiding force, right? For a start, Wham is playing a very tight economy, which, you know, for the Mongols, we don't always see. We usually see them like to spread out with a step readout or maybe engage in caravans. That's just not happening in this game because of the early pressure that came up from the Abbasids of the Feudal Age. But as a result, DauT, while he's kind of raiding, it's not effective raiding. It's not able to get on top of the villages and regularly snipe them. Something that Wham is once again doing over here. Yeah, you can see it. Deals with man-at-arms fine. And there's still plenty of villagers here he could kill, which is why DauT now at 41, Wham up at 46. And Springald's now being built by DauT. Has to react to the play out of Wham. Mongols, what can I say, guys? Springald patch may have hit, but that doesn't change what Mongols want to do. And this was something that was highlighted, right? With the changes to the Springalds, it was likely we were going to see a switch just heavy into Mangonels. And of course, the benefit to that is that it was going to bring Springalds back into their relevance, which is, of course, Springalds, because of the changes, although they do less damage to other units, they do more damage to siege weapons now. And Springalds now in a state where they can easily free them with one salvo, snipe out a Mangonel. And once again, just these Lancers still alive and still causing issues. And you're happy, right? Even if you get one villager per Lancer, yeah, you can say it's not cost effective, but it is in terms of stripping effective economy scaling, right? Because DauT, like we said, is playing 1 TC. If this was 2 free TCs, I'd agree. You need to get 2, maybe 3 villagers value for each Lancer for it to feel good. But that's not the case here. Because villagers are such a finite resource in this game. Sniping 1 or 2 is going to give you the edge. And remember what we talked about before. Being the Mongols, having the step readout, you actually are much more effective. Like, right now, Wham has 19 people in gold. It's actually more like he has 29 or 28, right? Because of that extra 50% drop-off, which, remember, it's not you gather an extra 50% and you gather quicker. It's just you gather your load and you drop it off, and you drop off 50% additional out of nowhere. Which also means that Wham can play a tighter economy for longer than DauT can, because these resources don't drain up as quickly. And yeah. This is the tight economy we're talking about, right? The switch over to pasture is heavy into it now. Dropping another archery range in the meantime. DauT starting to gain a foothold on Wham's side of the map, but Wham waiting around the back with the scouts, with the Lancers. And he's unscouted. He has high ground vision here. DauT won't think his opponent is here. So if he engages on the front line and bails on his Springals and Mangonels and doesn't protect them, he will lose them quickly here. Remember, Springals especially, 200 health. Even more squishy than the Mangonels. Springald's just taking a few shots here and there. DauT trying to find the military district, right? He wants to snipe out the Treeclin and new troops. He might be forced to engage. Trade on the Springals. And DauT not getting the better side of this. Wham is just slowly picking apart his Springald line. On the home field, remember. And while both of them can build out in the field, I definitely give the edge to the Mongols in this situation, right? With the superior mobility on the Springalds. Mangonel shot. It's good. Heavy damage here. So many villagers almost dead. If he gets another Mangonel shot like that, it's going to heavily cripple Wham's economy. And I'm surprised he didn't shift that. Didn't move away. And now look at this, trying to stop out the Springals as they're being built, but unable to do so quick enough. We'll back away before losing all the Lancers. And that Mangonel shot. Just taking advantage of the fact that when he's building these out in the field, he's stacked on top of them, right? And that Springal's never complete. And now Wham, he has a huge advantage in this fight. DauT, so immobile. If he ever loses a Springal count, he loses the engagement, and that's what we're seeing here. It takes him too long to gap close, which means he's going to lose the entire army at this rate. Mangonel. Mangonel's the only thing that can save him right now. The only way it could really save him if it snipes out that huge cluster of villages. 16 villages right there. Does he go for it? He goes for the shot! And he gets them! 14 villagers just dead in the blink of an eye. DauT evening up the economy difference now. After all that surgical harassment out of Wham, brute force wins through and evens up the pop count on the eco front. And although he wipes the army, Wham will be frustrated by that. Losing that many villages in such a fashion was not the way he wanted to play this. And he didn't need to either. It was incredibly greedy. Look at his numbers. He had surplus on the food. He wasn't pressured in this situation. He didn't need to cluster up 15, 16 villages on top of each other when a Mangonel is still in play. And that means that DauT, he can back up for the moment. You still have to worry about the step readout, yes, but you do not have to worry about your opponent having a huge economy boost in terms of the sheer villager number over you, right? And that is a situation where you can actually breathe a sigh of relief. So DauT What is his next goal here? We see Wham has huge surpluses of gold, by the way. No marketplace, though, so never able to trade it. And that's kind of the wacky part. He has so many people working on gold, but he hasn't built a marketplace at all. And remember, that huge hit to his economy, look what it's done, right? His food lines are non-existent. It's almost like he forgot that this happened. Which is just weird to me. Like, everyone's on wood. I guess he feels he needs a bigger siege army, right? He feels like he actually annihilated enough of DauT's forces that he's confident, but he might be wrong. DauT, in true DauT fashion, investing these valuable villages and dropping a fort keep. And this is quite the gamble. And you see how quickly they're getting picked apart. This was not the play, DauT. He needed troops ahead of this. He's going to try to move in and punish this now, and it looks like it's going to be good enough. Wham! He respects it and backs away. Too busy losing the siege weapons right now to actually contest the villages as the fort keep is going to be dropped. Maganel gets sniped out. Archer line is engaged. Mainly spears here, but a few man-at-arms does make this a little bit more pesky for Wham. And the Springel's also being sniped out in the meantime. Maganel trying to move forward for the shot. That's going to get a good one off. Oh, just out of range. And the Maganel might get sniped now. So Springel's will be able to finish it off. I think DauT's best play maybe there would have been to go deeper for the villager line, but you need to try and get rid of the military. However, DauT now does have a foothold in Wham's base, right? Oh my god, these pesky villagers just being mowed down by the spearmen again. And DauT, what's that, 42, 45. So DauT still loses some more villages, remember? He brought a bunch of them fought there. Considering how many he lost, I think he must have sniped out 1 or 2 in return of Wham's. But with this foothold in Wham's base now, despite the slight eco advantage now in favor of the Mongols, DauT is definitely still up on his opponent here. And he's not running out of resources, right? Meanwhile, Wham is. He's almost through this wood line entirely. And it's going to be the Trebs to try and react to the keep. Maganel's being built, but I think what DauT actually needs is he needs some Springles. You now see your opponent has the Trebs. So what's your answer going to be? Looks like his answer might be another keep behind his opponent. Look, this is such a big investment out of DauT. 14 of his villages. Effectively, like what, a quarter of his economy? Bad at maths, I know. But it's a huge chunk of his effective economy just running around right now. This feels like a bit of a miss. I feel like he's big-brained himself, right? Like, the wraparound is so wide, and I do not understand why. I know he wants to keep it a secret, but... Oh, he's looking for the gold. That was what it was. Did he not scout out here? No, he hadn't scouted out. So he thought he was going to find a gold vein on the outside, but he didn't at all. I think he originally was looking... Yeah, he was looking in the bot corner because there's one at the top corner here. So DauT missing out on so much effective economy because he misreads the map here. That's going to stun him a bit. Meanwhile, keep is going to fall. So DauT doesn't even try to keep it up, right? Because you're on that 1 TC, this is the thing. When you play 2 free TCs, aggressive keeping is actually a more affordable endeavor, right? It's something you can invest villages on the front, you can repair, and you don't feel like you're losing the economy game. And if you lose the villages, once again, you don't feel like you're losing the economy game because you replace them so quickly. But when you're playing one-on-one TCs, any movement of villagers is a huge loss of economy, right? And a huge risk to your economy because if they get sniped out, replacing them is such a slow and arduous process. And still, both of them just on that 1 TC. But these gold veins definitely working out in favor of Wham. You can just see it, right? Always comfortable with this step readout. This step readout has barely traveled the world, right? This moves small distances. Oh, now the Lance is chasing out. DauT trying to run away here. So many villages. Remember, these villages that weren't able to work. The Warlord to try and protect them is going to buy some much-needed time. And the army is on its way. And DauT trying to bait his opponent in a little here. But this is the mistake. He's going to lose 1 or 2 of these villages again, and there'll be a disengage in time from Wham with that superior movement speed. I say that, the Khan. Oh no, mismanaged. Big deal at this stage in the game, folks. We're 29 minutes in. Losing your Khan at this stage when you're looking for that effective raiding and maneuverability can be the difference in the next fight against these static units of the Spearmen and the Man-Arms. This could potentially come back to bite you in the arse, right? Like, you know, if you think about Archer and Crossbowman speed, they're not that fast. So usually they rely on the Yam as well as the maneuver to quickly shift positioning in fights. And that value that the Mongol player gets just got stripped away for 2 minutes. So DauT Just continue to rebuild in the front. Did bank one relic. That's something he's doing that his opponent isn't. It's going to even up the difference a bit, but you can see the numbers. They're still mainly in favor of Wham. The only one that's not right now is Gold, and that's because he actually cut the amount of people working on it, courtesy of the fact he's got 2k surplus, right? In fact, if he wants, he could actually aim for an Imperial Age timing, but he wants aggression, right? So Deerstone moves forward, and so does the army. He has to, right? Sacred Site's being capped now. He understands that DauT, if need be, is willing to let this slog out a bit longer. And because he's engaging with the temples, he's gathering up the relics, it could put Wham at a disadvantage if he waits another 5 minutes. And there you go, just building the Sprimmers out in the field. Would love to see 1 or 2 Mangonels. You know you're playing up against melee forces, right? Definitely high value. And keep in mind these Spearmen are a little bit more tanky, right? Courtesy of the Camel Archers giving over the Camel support here. Also nerfs the damage coming out of the cavalry that Wham can field, right? The Lancers will do 20% less damage. So if you thought they were having a hard time against Spearmen before, the Lancers are having an even worse time with the Camels in the mix. Camel army continue to build. Just looking to chase forward here. Gets into charge range. Gets on top of them. But it's being kited out. There's just not enough Spearmen here. DauT. Big mistake jumping the gun, but he didn't have a choice. He saw his opponent was pushing in, so he had to engage. But now he's struggling to stay on top of him. And with the main front line already looking like it's gone, the Camel Archers aren't going to last long after that. And you can see, yeah, Wham. Realizes there's no reason to retreat anymore. Does need to pull the Deerstone back to be repaired, but he's looking to get down forward outpost, right? So the Deerstone will become irrelevant at this rate. And all the while, the gold line! DauT was fully distracted by the fight. Oh my god, it's a 20 pop cap difference in terms of villager count now. And DauT is running out of things to harvest in his own base, right? Everything else is becoming more dangerous to reach. His army is gone, his opponent is on his front door. Oh, this is looking all done. I don't know how you get an army quick enough. DauT just doesn't have surplus, right? He's expiring on the berry bushes here. This is now exposed economy area. He's barely got any on the back foot. He's going to have to move them all the way across the map to actually get back into gathering. This game looks done. Yeah, I think it is. Treb's moving in as well. Wham! What a hold, right? Dealing with the early aggression out of the Abbasids here. Repelling DauT time and time again. Never allowing him to get that true foothold even when he gets the keep drop. Recovering from having a huge chunk of your effective economy smashed by boulders from the Mangonel play underneath your own TC. Despite all of that, Wham bounces back in great fashion here. And now he is the one that is just turning the screws on DauT. And DauT, this play into Camel Archers, I just don't like it. I don't think it's the play in this game, right? You're just going to get mowed through. You don't get any bonus damage up against your opponents here. A few Camel Archers, yes, but this many, with such a little economy left, doesn't feel like a great investment. And I think that's going to convince him the game's over. Abbasid players are shaking their fists, saying, goddamn, Camel's still useless, but well played by the Mongol player. I love the way you utilize Sprimmels in this game. I love the way that he showed how you can kind of turtle, even as the Mongols, who aren't famous for doing exactly that, and the way he bounces back, strikes back, and punishes DauT despite his attempts at early aggression because he put himself in a situation where he can never scale, right? There was never that multi-TC front coming out from DauT. There was never that scalability, and it meant that every time he'd done these economy trades, it was actually valuable for the Mongol player because despite the fact that he's dealing with a finite amount of resources safeguarded near his TC, he actually makes the most of them. Even though DauT's given all this extra room, in the end, it just becomes space for him to kill himself with, right? When he splits out in these pocket economies and a few lancers just spread out and actually snipe so many villagers. Meanwhile, every time he wants to get an equal trade, he has to commit a whole army, right? And that's what we talk about effective economy. It's the investment and what it gets you. Wham constantly has a defense force. He has a small raiding force. If he loses a small raiding force, it ends up being, I don't know, a fifth of the cost of what DauT invests to kill the same amount of villagers. And that really made the difference. Great showing of how you can actually play tight and how you can play frugal. And I think that's something a lot more players need to take note of, is it's not always the person with the bigger stick who wins, right? It's the person that swings it better, okay? And I realized that that analogy could be used for a very different thing, but we didn't go there, and that's what's important. But you made it to the end of the video. Congratulations. Thank you for watching all the way through. Hopefully you enjoyed the content that you saw here, and if you want to see more, there should be videos up on your screen now. But make sure you subscribe so you get to know when the latest video is going to be dropped, and make sure you head across to my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/killerpigeon, where you can catch all of these games live and more, ones that don't even make it to the channel. I'll see you there.